All right, welcome to the OpenBazaar developer call. Thanks for everyone who's attending. It's August 8th. So the vast majority of effort on our team over the past month has been focused on the Haven application. Both the actual Haven app, which is a um, React Native application that's available on both iOS and Android, but also a lot of surrounding work to get things in shape for the app to be used, infrastructure, and of course on the server side as well. So the release itself has gone very well. We're very happy with where it's at the moment. I believe we had just passed 5,000 users the other day. This is about a week and a half ago that it launched. So it's good to see some good adoption. The ratings, both on the iOS and the Android store, are almost universally positive, in the high fours. So we're happy about that as well. And for those who haven't used Haven, one of the main differences from the OpenBazaar client, of course, the fact that you can use it on your phone, but it also has a social feature, sort of Twitter-ish, and that has been actively used. I encourage everyone who hasn't checked it out to go download it, to check it out, check out the social and check how everything's going. So that has been where a lot of our efforts have gone recently. But that is not all we have been working on. As I mentioned, there's been a lot of infrastructure work. A substantial amount of that infrastructure work has been to support Haven. As I said, the social feed is something that OB1, the company, is just managing entirely. Now, it does, those posts do get posted onto IPFS, but currently that is not integrated into the OpenBazaar desktop client. It's just something that OB1 is sort of scraping and offering up as an API endpoint. I don't think we've decided if we think it's worthwhile to implement in the desktop client yet. If anyone has thoughts on that, feel free to reach out to us. That content is available on IPFS, but it's just being ignored at the moment on the client side. And then there's been a lot of other infrastructure work done as well. One is for moderation. So as everyone on this call probably knows, OpenBazaar itself, the server and the client, is built to resist censorship, and there's no one, OB1 doesn't control the content that's out there. Within the Haven application, we control the search engine, we control product discovery, and in order to be able to stay in the Apple and the Google app stores, we have to censor information. OB1 deals with some of that content, and we have to have the infrastructure in place to be able to manage that. So that's what we have been doing on the infrastructure side. There's also infrastructure changes for better product discovery. This is something that actually happened a few months ago, but we've been upgrading the infrastructure to make it faster and more responsive. But there are changes to how IPNS lookups work. So OpenBazaar uses IPFS and IPNS, and we don't need to go into the differences there unless you guys want to, but IPNS is quite slow, and resolution can take a long time. We have created another endpoint so that OB1 can serve up IPNS records directly to people, and that speeds up the process quite a bit. And then also on the infrastructure side, making things more stable generally, of course, and then automating them as well. So there are automated health tests that happen, and then the servers can be rebuilt. All of our stuff, all of our websites are on static sites, and it's just gotten a lot more reliable and more automated as we've gone forward. So that's on the sort of Haven and infrastructure side. We also released 2.3.4. This was earlier in the month, nearly a month ago. And there's two things of note in the 2.3.4 release. One is that there was an issue of publishing to IPFS. This affected a very small number of users. I think it was triggered by a migration that had gone wrong. And when the migration went wrong, you weren't able to publish to IPFS correctly. So we hunted that issue down and put out 234 was more or less a hot fix to fix that issue. But it also added, or I should say removed, notifications for moderators when they're added. Right now, if you're a moderator on the network, or previously if you were a moderator on the network, when someone added you to their store, you got a notification. And we heard from moderators that that wasn't particularly useful notification. And we also worried that with the Haven launch, because verified moderators are added automatically to people's stores, that they would get like a flood of notifications as soon as Haven was put out. Since we've had over 5,000 users, that's correct. So for the moderator's sake, in the 2.3.4, we took that out, and hopefully most of them updated. I tried to reach out and ask or tell them to update beforehand, and I think most of them did. That's 2.3.4. There's some other things that have been happening as well. Naturally, there's been a lot of bug hunting in Haven itself. It's as with any product, there are bugs, and Haven has a decent number of them here and there. So we've been hearing reports from users and trying to fix those naturally. There are some on the OpenBazaar side as well. There has been an issue with confusion around order states. And there's a couple different issues around that, actually. One was if you published the listing and then you turned your store off, if someone was able to purchase that via an offline order, then your store would see it, the vendor store would see it in an error state, and you can't recover from that in the UI. There's nothing you can do to fix that. I believe the fix is already in for that particular issue. There are other issues around order states where you can see an order that's funded, but you, as the vendor, cannot take action. And there are a couple other reports we've had of like buyers not getting an order state update from the vendor. There have been several fixes put in that we think address most of these issues. Some of them might still be outstanding. I don't think we've definitively tested to say that they're all taken care of, but there's been a lot of effort to fix those. There's been some issues using Zcash that we are aware of and think we have fixes in for. Anyone on the OB1 team on the bug hunting side, have I missed anything, or I guess on anything else I've gone through on Haven or 2.3.4? Anything that I've missed there?
Yeah, I know that we're seeing some challenges with high fees for Bitcoin Cash, and we found where the problem is with that, have a fix prepared, which will also impact the fee handling for Litecoin and Zcash as well, which will be much more closely in line with what we do on the Bitcoin Cash side. More specifically, Litecoin and Zcash both have 1, 5, and 10 Satoshi per byte as default fees, and they're static. So we're going to be changing those to a more dynamic fee structure that will follow the market price of those coins respectively to help ensure the security of their respective networks, which is what Bitcoin Cash already does, albeit we have some adjustments to its algorithm so that it's not quite so aggressive on the fees that are being presented. And all that is with the understanding that despite the quote-unquote high fees that are on Bitcoin Cash, we're still talking about cents, like less than 5 cents per transaction in some very extreme cases. So it's not as though the fees are exorbitant, but we are aware of it, and we do have some fixes prepared.
Thank you, Mike. So moving on, other things that have been worked on. One is the OpenBazaar web implementation. Chat has been completed, or is almost completed, so that's now doable in the browser. And now contract creation is being started. Of course, OpenBazaar uses Ricardian contracts, and the contract structure is fundamental to how it works. So it's an important step in getting it working in the browser. That's where we're at on that now. And then other sort of random changes. One is the fee adjustments, which Mike already talked about. Another is relaying. So relaying is something we've been working on for quite some time. It allows for better network connectivity between nodes. And because Haven naturally is on mobile devices, it would benefit substantially from automatic relaying. That is not currently the default. It's not implemented, but we are working to make that the case. And then the last thing that I have noted is the Ethereum work. So we've been working to implement Ethereum in OpenBazaar and eventually Haven as well for quite some time. We were stymied for a while by the fact that Ethereum has different levels of precision than Bitcoin, which OpenBazaar was originally built based on. So that has created quite a bit of work to fix. It looks as though most of the Ethereum work has been completed, and we hope within the next 2 weeks to get to the point where we're in final testing, and maybe within the next month or so, we can start the sort of final testing for getting Ethereum out there. We don't yet know if the 2.3.5 release is going to include Ethereum. I don't know if we have fixes that we want to get out in the meantime before Ethereum or not. But if not, then I think 2.3.6 is likely. All right. Anyone from the OB1 team? Anything that has been happening over the past month or so that I have not yet noted?
Oh, that's pretty thorough, Sam. Great work.
All right. Thank you, Mike. So that's everything that has been done. In terms of what we're doing moving forward, the major focus is still going to be Haven. This is really one of the only OB1 products, and OB1, the company. We love OpenBazaar, we love open source, and that's what we've been focusing on for the entire company history. But this is an OB1 product that is important to our company, and so we're going to be putting a lot of effort into that. And then all the things that I've mentioned already that's been going on for the past month, we're continuing. So the OpenBazaar web will continue, the Ethereum work will continue, all the different fixes, of course, will continue. And that's primarily where we're going for the next month. So, does anyone have any questions or comments? Feel free to either leave them in the chat or jump into or jump on the mic, and I'll give folks a minute to do that. And if no one has any questions, then I'll ask if anyone has any updates to share as well.
I was wondering about the web buying function.
Yeah, the status of being able to buy on the web. Yeah. So that is the OpenBazaar web implementation that I've been talking about. So, Josh, I don't know if you have a more detailed update than I do, but as far as I know, basically chat is working. The contract creation is underway, and I think that's as far as we've gotten.
That's an accurate statement. We are working on making contracts work on web, but that's the state. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, and I see Impartial Moderation has asked, will it work like a normal node or buyers only? So it's being built on an implementation of IPFS in JavaScript, IPFS.js, and IPFS.js is early, I would say. There's, it's not nearly as solid as the Go implementation. So there's a bit of a question mark as to exactly what functionality we are going to be able to support. The goal long-term is that it will just be another IPFS, another OpenBazaar node in browser and have the same functionality. But to get to that long-term goal, we're taking it in steps, And initially, we're focusing on creating an implementation for people to be able to purchase things. So you would likely still, vendors would likely still use Haven or use the desktop client to sell, but buyers will be able to make purchases through the web. That is the current plan. Now, if there's anyone out there listening who is interested in trying to get IPFS JS in a better state or help OpenBazaar in a browser work, we absolutely would love to have your help. So please reach out to us on Slack, and we can help direct you on what needs to be done, because there's a lot that needs to be done there. I see some discussion in the chat about IPNS keys and ingestion. Yeah, I mean, well, Mike has already responded well, but that's something that we recognized, was a real pain point for people on the network, the speed of IPNS, and so we kind of threw this together and put out a solution that seems to, thus far at least, be a substantial improvement. But in terms of having like a formal spec out and having like an endpoint possibly that's public, we haven't gotten to that point yet. But I think all of that makes sense. And Tyler is not on the call, but he's been the one leading that effort. So I'm sure that I know that he has further improvements and thoughts on how to make that better moving forward as well. Are there any other comments or questions?
I'll just throw a thought in to add on to what Sam was saying earlier about our focus being Haven and the web experience. Despite a lot of our focus being on these new experiences that we're producing, there are a lot of fixes and improvements that are being delivered back into the daemon, which the Haven app uses at its core. So a lot of these fixes will eventually trickle out into the open source product and become available in the desktop. Even if for some reason we decide not to expose a social experience in the desktop UI, that behavior will still be available in the daemon. So in addition to all the other fixes and stuff that we're finding and resolving in our other experiences. So I don't want anyone to think that we're abandoning any of our open source software. We're going to continue to improve that as much as we're able.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, Mike. I appreciate that. And on that line, on that note, we are always taking recommendations from people about how the software could be improved. Just the other day, there was a thread in the verified moderator chat talking about suggestions from verified moderators on how to improve the service. And while we don't have timelines when we would like stuff like that to happen, it's always a battle for prioritization. We know that there's lots of areas that it could be improved, and given enough time and enough support from the community, it will happen. Just lots of other things that need to happen as well. So. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat or from anyone else, so I'm going to open it up for updates. Is there anyone from the community who'd like to talk about what they're working on? You guys have the floor.
So if nobody else is going, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So for those who don't know, I worked on Raw Flood project. It was like an open source search engine for OpenBazaar, and it was kind of a really fast project. It was like in between like finals during college, and it was kind of just like a weekend project. But I've had a lot of people who have emailed me. I've probably seen something like 5 to 10 websites actually set up running the software. Like there was that many people that were interested and actually went through the steps to set it up, because it's not just like a 1-minute process. It actually takes some time, and it kind of kills me because there's all these improvements and little bugs that there are on the software because it was so quickly written, that I've gotten a lot of good feedback, and I do plan on rewriting it in a lot cleaner way. It probably won't happen this month because I kind of have a full list of things to do, but it is something that I'm going to try and finish next month. One of the main things I'm going to be working on is making sure that it doesn't require any JavaScript to run on the front end. Right now it uses Angular, which is like a huge package. It's something like 2 megabytes, which is insane for the client end library. Other than that, I'm going to move on to Zocos for anyone that's interested. Last time when I talked about Zocos, we were talking about building out like the Shopify importer, and it's not there yet, and it's not because Shopify isn't some crazy hard thing to write for imports, but we found out that we needed to write a lot of supporting infrastructure, and that includes things like mass editors for products, better support and tooling for people who have thousands of products. Some of the people who've reached out to us said they had about 40,000 listings, and so we were, did not have the tooling to support that. So that's kind of what we've been working on to kind of get right before we push out the big update that's going to allow, importing Shopify stores, which is also going to have a few other updates just to support these larger kind of stores. Other than that, that's basically what our focus is on this month. When we release the Shopify import code, we're also going to open source it. So for people who don't want to run it on Zocos, they can import it for the OpenBazaar Go desktop client or whatever. And that's all the updates from my side.
Awesome. Thank you, Rod. Bringing your A game, man. That reworking the search stuff, open sourcing the importing stuff, that just sounds awesome. Very excited to hear that. For those who don't know, Zocos, you can run a store on the web. So highly recommend you check it out, Zocos.com. It is .com, is it not?
Yeah, you got it.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Hadn't checked it out in a little while, but yeah, Zocos.com.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments or question from folks before we wrap up this dev call?
How's about the name resolution thing? You should switch it from a hash to like a handle, store name.
Yeah, that's a good question. So in OpenBazaar version 1, we had a name resolution service tied to Blockstack, which gave friendlier, user-friendly names. In OpenBazaar version 2, there is no name resolution built in at this point. And we talked a lot about whether or not we were going to make that a priority. Chris, I see you're on the call. I know that you had wanted to implement, I think, just standard like DNS resolution, but that didn't happen. I don't know. Are there any proposals out there that we have thought about working on, or is that just something that is completely backburnered?
The DNS resolution is something that's very doable and pretty easy to do. It's just, I don't know, it didn't make it on our list of priorities, but it's, I don't know, maybe looking forward, it's something we should revisit.
Okay. So, I'm afraid that doesn't answer your question very well, other than to say it doesn't exist right now. It could exist. It's not something we've made a priority.
So I'd like to add on to that. There are a lot of features that I think people are interested in playing around with on OpenBazaar, and I think the team we've said this in various ways, and I'll try and say it in a different way here, that we are very open to contributors offering up improvements to the API, the protocol, and the functionality of the daemon. And we want to try and make that process a lot more easy for newcomers and vetted coders alike to be able to participate in. So I would say if this is something that's interesting to you as far as something you'd like to hack on or possibly poke at, join us in the public Slack and express your interest, and we'll get you running. We've had people, I'll mention a couple of the projects that people are working on outside of our company. I know that there are 2 teams that are looking at separate wallet implementations, one for Monero and one for Steam. We have another gentleman who's interested in exploring accepting credit cards within OpenBazaar and finding a way to expose a credit card acceptance wallet inside of OpenBazaar without adding friction to the buying experience. We have some people that are interested in seeing a pay cash in person payment option for a listing, and they're exploring how to implement that, which is really just OBGo daemon work. It doesn't involve any wallet work, assumedly. So there are lots of areas where it might be possible for even someone who's non-technical to be able to participate in improving the OpenBazaar project. So I highly recommend and would like to see people join the Slack conversation and even the conversations that are happening on the issues in GitHub. You can open an issue in GitHub and we can push the conversation forward there. And this would be a good time to do that because we're at a point now when we're considering how we might improve the daemon architecture for future work, much in the same way that we learned a lot from OpenBazaar 1 and had improvements in how OpenBazaar 2 was designed. We're starting to consider what maybe an OpenBazaar 3 might look like, not to necessarily abandon OpenBazaar 2, but to at least create a vision for what 3 could be. And some of those ideas include like the pluggable wallets that we had been talking about, having name resolution, changing the way that we handle the life cycle of the app and the internals of OpenBazaar Go. So there's lots of opportunity and room for participation from the outside community, and we'd like to encourage that.
Yeah, I mean, not to maybe throw cold water on that, but I think a bigger challenge for us as like a team is that getting stuff into OpenBazaar implies both work on the server side in Go as well as in the client side in JavaScript. And so it's like if someone could submit a pull request to one, you know, but it's might not necessarily do anything. Like if you submit it to the server side, if we don't also hook it up to the UI. And so to do both requires kind of a skill set that I think few people have, which is, I think, the challenge as an outside contributor, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with what Chris pointed out there, which is why I would encourage to start with conversation and discussing what idea you'd like to pursue. And then this way we can see that it could actually be feasibly merged into our code base and properly implemented. We don't want to have a piece of code pushed up that eventually gets rotted and thrown away.
All right, thanks, Mike and Chris. Are there any other comments or questions? All right, I'm not hearing anything or seeing anything in chat. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good day, and see y'all next month, hopefully.